Tim.
Thanks, guys. Tim, alcoholic.
Tim.
We are on page 89, chapter 7, working with others. Step 12. The only step with a full chapter dedicated to it. Guess it's important. Practical experience shows that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. It works when other activities fail. I underline that twice. This is our 12th suggestion. Carry this message to other alcoholics. You can help when no one else can. You can secure their confidence when others fail. Remember, they are very ill. Life will take on new meaning. To watch people recover, to see them help others, to watch loneliness vanish, to see a fellowship grow up about you, to have a host of friends. This is an experience you must not miss. We know you will not want to miss it. Frequent contact with newcomers and with each other is the bright spot of our lives. Perhaps you are not acquainted with any drinkers who want to recover. You can easily find some by asking a few doctors, ministers, priests, or hospitals. And again, this is from 1939, so we have a lot of other options, such as the meeting you're sitting in, everybody who's here right now. But also other options as far as detoxes and rehabs and the like. They will be only too glad to assist you. Don't start out as an evangelist or reformer. That was a suggestion from Dr. Silkworth to Bill. Bill had all of the information, and before he met Dr. Bob, he failed repeatedly. Why did he fail repeatedly? His opinion was that he started out with the white light experience and telling them about the white light experience. And it makes a point about that here. So Silkworth said to him, start out with the medical aspect of the disease and lead up to your spiritual experience. Unfortunately, a lot of prejudice exists. You will be handicapped if you arouse it. Ministers and doctors are competent, and you can learn much from them if you wish. But it happens that because of your own drinking experience, you can be uniquely useful to other alcoholics. So one alcoholic to another alcoholic is nothing trumps that. So cooperate, never criticize. To be helpful is our only aim. When you discover a prospect, and of course, we don't use the word sponsor in the first 164 pages. This wasn't a term that was used yet. Let's see what words they did use to describe a sponsee, right? When you discover a prospect for Alcoholics Anonymous, find out all you can about him. If he does not want to stop drinking, don't waste time trying to persuade him. You may spoil a later opportunity. This advice is given for his family also. They should be patient, realizing they are dealing with a sick person. If there is any indication that he wants to stop, now remember, we say this in the rooms all the time. AA is not for those who need it, it's for those who want it. But I'd add on, and do it. It's a verb. You just don't discuss that you want it. You have to prove that you want it. If there is any indication that he wants to stop, have a good talk with the person most interested in him, usually his wife. Get an idea of his behavior, his problems, his background, the seriousness of his condition, and his religious leanings. You need this information to put yourself in his place, to see how you would like him to approach you if the tables were turned. Sometimes it is wise to wait till he goes on a binge. The family may object to this, but unless he is in a dangerous physical condition, it is better to risk it. Don't deal with him when he is very drunk, unless he is ugly and the family needs your help. Wait for the end of the spree, or at least a lucid interval. Then let his family or a friend ask him if he wants to quit for good, and if he would go to any extreme to do so. If he says yes, then his attention should be drawn to you as a person who has recovered. Recovered from what? There you go. Hopeless state of mind and body. You should be described to him as one of a fellowship who, I underline this, as part of their own recovery, try to help others, and who will be glad to talk to him if he cares to see you. So that's another conversation that we sometimes have about Bill. Bill has all the same amount of information pre-Dr. Bob that was necessary to get with Dr. Bob and have his first success. But he always started out as saving them from the perspective he was going to grab them off the bar stool and save them. That's the wrong place to start. You start from, as part of our own recovery, I've come to talk to you about it. Completely different perspective. He's pacing the Mayflower Hotel. He's getting antsy. He hears the bar at the end of the lobby, and he's thinking, I'm going to go in there and I'm just going to get a ginger ale, and I'm going to strike up a conversation and just have some companionship for the night. And it comes to him, I better call another alcoholic. And that's when he ends up calling Reverend Tunks, who hooks him up with Henrietta Seiberling, who then hooks him up with Dr. Bob. He was going to Dr. Bob to help himself. Different perspective. First time successful with the same information. If he does not want to see you, never force yourself upon him. Neither should the family hysterically plead with him to do anything, nor should they tell him much about you. They should wait for the end of his next drinking bout. You might place this book where he can see it in the interval. Here, no specific rule can be given. The family must decide these things, but urge them not to be over-anxious, for that might spoil matters. Usually, the family should not try to tell your story. When possible, avoid meeting a man through his family. Approach through a doctor or an institution is a better bet. If your man needs hospitalization, he should have it, but not forcibly unless he is violent. Let the doctor, if he will, tell him he has something in the way of a solution. When your man is better, the doctor might suggest a visit from you. Though you have talked with the family, leave them out of the first discussion. Under these conditions, your prospect will see he is under no pressure. He will feel he can deal with you without being nagged by his family. Call on him while he is still jittery. There's yet another example of when you get started. You don't get started after you've been here for 90 days. You get started right away with somebody. The more raw they are, the more the channel is open to receive the message, to do the work, to hear to pierce the armor, smash ego while they're jittery. He may be more receptive when depressed. I think we always do this the opposite. They got to get well before we start the steps. Do you do the steps to get well, or do you get well to do the steps? See your man alone if possible. At first, engage in general conversation. After a while, turn the talk to some phase of drinking. Tell him enough about your drinking habits, symptoms, and experiences to encourage him to speak of himself. If he wishes to talk, let him do so. You will thus get a better idea of how you ought to proceed. If he is not communicative, give him a sketch of your drinking career up to the time you quit. So the point they're making there is you would not initially tell them what the solution is, right? You don't jump into the solution. We're going to talk more about that in a second here. But it says it right here, but say nothing for the moment of how that was accomplished. And you'll see later on, just sort of highlight, just to keep your eye open for it. We're waiting to see if he'll ask us how we did it, rather than us just, giving it to him, him asking. If he is in a serious mood, dwell on the troubles liquor has caused you, being careful not to moralize or lecture. If his mood is light, tell him humorous stories of your escapades. Get him to tell some of his. When he sees you know all about the drinking game, commence to describe yourself as an alcoholic. Tell him how baffled you were, how you finally learned that you were sick. So this would be the medical aspect, the twofold disease, mental, physical. You can also talk about it as a threefold disease, but it might be a little early on this guy because you would then be talking about what the solution is, right? Spiritual malady. Give him an account of the struggles you made to stop. Show him the mental twist which leads to the first drink of a spree. We suggest that you do this as we have done it in the chapter on alcoholism. What's important about the chapter on alcoholism? Step 1 is there, page 30, step 1. You're going to describe step 1 in that chapter. If he is alcoholic, he will understand you at once. He will match your mental inconsistencies with some of his own. So there's identification going on. If you are satisfied that he is a real alcoholic, which means what? Somebody that has both the mental and the physical illness, disease, right? Somebody who's beyond human aid, somebody who's tried other methods and it has not worked. Begin to dwell on the hopeless feature of the malady, meaning it's progressive and fatal. Jails, institutions, or death. Those are your only 3 choices. Those are your only 3 choices. You keep going. If you don't die of natural causes, jails, institutions, or death via drinking will be the answer, right? Show him from your own experience how the queer mental condition surrounding that first drink prevents normal functioning of the willpower. So we talk about this all the time, right? In the first step, the unmanageability is the use of self-will on a problem that's beyond self-will. We're beyond human aid. So if you're using self-will to manage your life and you're still drinking, you must fail if you're a real alcoholic. By definition, you are beyond human aid, which means your self-will. You may use self-will to go to the gym 4 times a week. That might work. You may use self-will to be the top salesperson in your organization. That might work. But to stop booze, that will not work. If it did work, if you were able to stop, and then more importantly, stay stopped and not be a miserable SOB, then you were not a real alcoholic. You stopped on your own, right? Without the solution. If you're able to stop and stay stopped on your own, you're not a real alcoholic. Very important definition. Don't, at this stage, refer to this book unless he has seen it and wishes to discuss it. And be careful not to brand him as an alcoholic. Let him draw his own conclusion. If he sticks to the idea that he can still control his drinking, tell him that possibly he can, if he is not too alcoholic. I underline this. But insist that if he is severely afflicted, there may be little chance he can recover by himself. So even if he agrees that I have an allergy, I got this allergy thing about the booze, I put 1 drink in my mouth and I know I'm going to finish that drunk. So I'm just not going to put any booze in my mouth. Well, you're forgetting the mental obsession that's going to come up at some point. 10 years down the road, 20 years. I've been hanging around with some guys recently. Every single one of them went out with double-digit sobriety. Every single one of them. They all forgot to do what we learned to do in the first 90 days. You know, less meetings, coaching soccer, no more commitments. You know, spouse told me not to go out on Wednesdays and Thursdays anymore, so now I don't. But I have a resentment over it. You know, you can play it over and over again. And I love the thing, you go to an anniversary, did I do this one? You go to the anniversary meeting and it's, the person celebrates, they go 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year, 7 year, 9 years, 11 years. Next guy celebrates says 28. All the guys in the middle, some of them may not be drinking, but they're not here. If they're not here, they're not doing step 12 and miss the whole point. Oh yeah, but I'm practicing the principles in all my affairs. You're not working with other alcoholics. That's the first part of the step. That trumps the second part of the step. Continue to speak of alcoholism as an illness, a fatal malady, meaning death. Talk about the conditions of mind and body which accompany it. So you just bring him into the doctor's opinion. Keep his attention focused mainly on your personal experience. Explain that many are doomed who never realize their predicament. Doctors are rightly loath meaning reluctant. Doctors are rightly loath to tell alcoholic patients the whole story unless it will serve some good purpose. So they're typically, in 1939, they would not give you all the facts because they didn't have a solution. Why am I going to bring up I'm going to bring up this whole topic, and then you say, okay, what should I do about it? I don't know. Right? But now look, they're talking to us now. But you may talk to them about the hopelessness of alcoholism because you offer a solution. You will soon have your friend admitting he has many, if not all, of the traits of the alcoholic. If his own doctor is willing to tell him that he is an alcoholic, so much the better. Even though your protege may not have entirely admitted his condition, he has become very curious to know how you got well. So he has not entirely admitted his condition, meaning he has not taken step one completely. But he's very interested in what the hell's going on here. Why are you sober? Let him ask you that question if he will. Tell him exactly what happened to you, italicized. Stress the spiritual feature freely, because now you're giving him the solution. If the man be an agnostic or atheist, make it emphatic that he does not have to agree with your conception of God. He can choose any conception he likes, provided it makes sense to him. The main thing is that he be willing to believe in a power greater than himself, and that he live by spiritual principles. So that encompasses steps 2 and 3. He didn't fully take 1 yet, is saying there in the first line, but they're talking about the willingness, the open-mindedness to accept 2 and 3. When dealing with such a person, you had better use everyday language to describe spiritual principles. There is no use arousing any prejudice he may have against certain theological terms and conceptions about which he may already be confused. Don't raise such issues, no matter what your own convictions are. Your prospect may belong to a religious denomination. His religious education and training may be far superior to yours. In that case, he is going to wonder how you can add anything to what he already knows. But he will be curious to learn why his own convictions have not worked and why yours seem to work so well. He may be an example of the truth that faith alone is insufficient. Important. To be vital, to have any value, faith must be accompanied by self-sacrifice and unselfish constructive action. So this is the difference. Some people will say in a meeting, I know, faith, but do you trust in your higher power? So that's where we're making the differentiation between steps 1, 2, and 3. It's talking about belief in, faith in a higher power. Steps 4 through 9 are all action steps, things you do. That's trust, that's dependence, that's verb. That you're proving that you believe in a higher power, right? Completely different thing. It's not vital if you stay in 1, 2, and 3. It only becomes vital when you do self-sacrifice and unselfish constructive action, which then would include living in 10 and 11 and rinse and repeat on 12 like you can't believe. All of that, first 11 steps, is to do good 12-step work. Get in the game, unblock yourself from the higher power, and do work. Let him see that you are not there to instruct him in religion. Admit that he probably knows more about it than you do. But call to his attention the fact that, however deep his faith and knowledge, he could not have applied it or he would not drink. There's the proof that he didn't. Everything that he's learned at his religious organization is probably 100% correct, but he's not put it into action. It's not vital. He'll discuss it with you, but he's not doing anything about it. Perhaps your story will help him see that he has failed to practice the very precepts he knows so well. We represent no particular faith or denomination. We are dealing only with general principles common to most denominations. Outline the program of action, the 12 steps, explaining how you made a self-appraisal, how you straightened out your past. So self-appraisal will be step 4, and 5, how you straightened out your past, which would be 8 and 9, and why you are now endeavoring to be helpful to him. Step 12. It is important for him, underline 3 times, it is important for him to realize that your attempt to pass this on to him plays a vital part in your own recovery. Actually, he may be helping you more than you are helping him. Make it plain he is under no obligation to you, that you hope only that he will try to help other alcoholics when he escapes his own difficulties. Suggest how important it is that he place the welfare of other people ahead of his own. So I believe the text here is saying, push to get here. Like everything's leading to this point right now. Suggest how important it is that he place the welfare of other people ahead of his own. So that means you don't just come to a meeting because you need a meeting. You go to a meeting, so in the first 10 minutes you get your battery recharged, and then you look around the room who needs your help. It says it right there. Make it clear that he is not under pressure, that he needn't see you again if he doesn't want to. You should not be offended if he wants to call it off, for he has helped you more than you have helped him. If your talk has been sane, quiet, and full of human understanding, you have perhaps made a friend. Maybe you have disturbed him about the question of alcoholism. This is all to the good. The more hopeless he feels, the better. This is a common theme we see every 7 pages. Hopelessness is a requirement. Anybody coming skipping in down the stairs probably isn't hopeless, you know. So that could cause an issue for you. Okay. He will be more likely to follow your suggestions. Here's another reference to sponsee. Your candidate may give reasons why he need not follow all the program. He may rebel at the thought of a drastic house cleaning which requires discussion with other people. Do not contradict such views. Tell him you once felt as he does, but you doubt whether you would have made much progress had you not taken action. On your first visit, tell him about the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. If he shows interest, lend him a copy of this book. So that's a reference there of now you're telling him about the meetings, right? This is where there'd be camaraderie, right? Not an absolute necessity. Is the big book a necessity? No. The big book only points you to that. First 100, what big book did they look at? None. It was that. In fact, before the big book, it was 6 steps. And the 6 steps can be found on page 263. If he shows interest, lend him a copy of this book. Yeah, sometimes I get off on that tangent because some people think that, you know, each word, or like we have a little fun with some of the interpretation of various things. If you get it, get it as a whole, you can push this to the side if you know how to take somebody through that. That's that. This is to instruct you on that. I think it's an important distinction. Unless your friend wants to talk further about himself, do not wear out your welcome. So we saw a bunch of references there: friend, protege, candidate. What's a couple of others that they used? Prospect. Not in here. Pigeon. Everybody know that one? Pigeon. They use in OA. Some OA groups still use baby, but that Dr. Bob used that. Baby. I don't think it'll go over big here, right? Give him a chance to think it over. If you do stay, let him steer the conversation in any direction he likes. Sometimes a new man is anxious to proceed at once, and you may be tempted to let him do so. This is sometimes, underlined, not always, this is sometimes a mistake. If he has trouble later, he is likely to say you rushed him. When did most of our pioneers at least do most of the step work? In detox. And detox was 5 days. There are many rehabs now where you come out where you've gotten up to the 5th step. A lot of 12-step rehabs, you leave having done your 5th step. You will be most successful with alcoholics if you do not exhibit any passion for crusade or reform. Never talk down to an alcoholic from any moral or spiritual hilltop. Simply lay out the kit of spiritual tools for his inspection. Show him how they worked with you. Offer him friendship and fellowship. Tell him that if he wants to get well, you will do anything to help. If he is not interested in your solution, if he expects you to act only as a banker for his financial difficulties or a nurse for his sprees, you may have to drop him until he changes his mind. This he may do after he gets hurt some more. So in other words, his next bottom. He could have gotten off at that floor, but in other words, this guy's going to need to go a little deeper, be more hopeless. If he is sincerely interested and wants to see you again, ask him to read this book in the interval. After doing that, he must decide for himself whether he wants to go on. He should not be pushed or prodded by you, his wife, or his friends. If he is to find God, the desire must come from within. So what is the solution? Finding your higher power. Realizing that you're not your higher power, right? More importantly, if he thinks he can do the job in some other way, meaning non-spiritual, if he thinks he can do the job in some other way, or prefers some other spiritual approach, encourage him to follow his own conscience. We have no monopoly on God. We merely have an approach that worked with us. But point out that we alcoholics have much in common, and that you would like, in any case, to be friendly. Let it go at that. We're going to stop there tonight.